Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Around the Ballpark podcast, episode number 93. We're just 1 week removed from our big 3,000 subscriber party that we just had. So thank you all so much for being a part of that, and awesome growth in just, I think, 16 months from when we first started this thing. So you guys rocking it. So thank you all so very much. I'm very excited to talk tonight about near and dear, of course. We're talking baseball, and tonight we're talking with Fish on the Farm's very own Alex Carver. We're going to dive into that. Alex, how you doing tonight?
Doing good, man. I love that old time feel intro. That was awesome. Like me being a student of the history of the game, that was great. So I already love this, and I've seen your guys' show before, and you guys do an awesome job. So I'm excited, Mike, to be on with you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to talk baseball with you, whether it be, of course, we're probably going to be talking more modern about the Marlins, but I just wanted to give you that nod to the history of the game. That was awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much. And I'm sure we'll have, unfortunately Darren couldn't make it tonight. So that just gives us an excuse in the future to have to do this a second time. So that's okay with me. So tonight, before we get into it, as we always have to do, of course, got to give a shout out to our sponsors over at Nashville Tax Solutions. Whether you need to file years of missing returns, a current year return, or you need relief from tax lien or levy, Nashville Tax Solutions has the solution for you. Their expert team of tax professionals are dedicated to providing personalized, tailored solutions to your unique situation. Please call Nashville Tax Solutions offices in Palm Bay and Fort Pierce, 855-627-4829, and check out their website at nashvilletaxsolutions.com. Or you can send an email. I like to do the old email way. I'm old school. info@nashvilletaxsolutions.com, where tax resolution is achieved. And, Alex, when I mentioned Christopher Bennett and his team, he's actually a season ticket holder for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And so we were kind of talking offline before we went live here about how this last night, actually, my wife and I went to see the Rays play the A's in the Steinbrenner Field. And so we wanted to do the whole beach thing. We were very excited about spending some time over there and then going to the game at night. And the weather was kind of crummy. So we kind of had to find something else to do. And so last minute, thankfully, my wife is a sports fanatic, so it's okay to double up on the sports for the day. So that's cool. But I found that they did I know it's football, but they did for $16, they had a stadium tour for Raymond James Stadium. So that was a lot of fun. We got to, and we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit more tomorrow on the show. But yeah, we got to basically see everything from the locker room to the press boxes to the we got to run on the field. We got to check out the crazy expensive suites and stuff like that they made it sound like it's so affordable, even though it's not so much. But yeah, so that was a great thing. So definitely encourage you, whether it's a major league team, minor league team, whatever. If you're in a city, you're looking for something to do, check out to see if they have a stadium tour, because it was awesome. First stadium tour I've done with all the talk I've done about baseball and sports. So just wanted to throw that out there for everybody. But yeah, Alex, if you wouldn't mind, before we get into the fun stuff and all that, just maybe a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, and if you have a fun story about how you became a Marlins fan in the first place.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the stadium tours, because before I became a member of Credential Media, one of my highlights of getting to go to baseball games was actually, I think, in around 2012, I believe, or right before I started covering baseball I started in 2014. didn't become credentialed until like 2016 because you got to prove yourself, right? In this business, you can't, not just anybody gets credentialed. You have to kind of prove your line of work and what you're doing. But before I became credentialed, I actually went with my stepfather, and Glenn Geffner, who was an old Marlins broadcaster, he noticed an image that I took from my phone, believe it or not, on opening day for the Marlins in 2012, which was their first year at the new park. I was in the upper deck on the third base side, and I just kind of took a picture of the huge American flag that they had draped over the outfield. And he picked me to win free tickets as well as a press box tour and a tour of the radio booth, which was such a thrill to me as somebody who had never seen that before. So pretty cool. Shout outs to Glenn Geffner, now a good friend of mine. That was super cool. I got to meet Tommy Hutton, who was the old Marlins broadcaster as well, now with the team again. It was just such a thrill to me covering the team as long as I have and being a fan of the team for as long as I was then. But that was just kind of like, I guess, backstory leading up to now covering the team. I started in 2014. Back in 2014, the Marlins minor league system was not good. Their top prospect was Tyler Kolek, and their second top prospect was a man named Avery Romero, who was the second baseman who unfortunately never made it. So that was just, I mean, those two alone, you can kind of just no hate on Tyler Kolek. He was supposed to be very good. Out of high school flamethrower, he never panned out. Was injured all the time. But no, I started then, and the reason that I tried to start doing it was because I had been covering the Marlins for another independent company called Most Valuable Network back then with a friend of mine, and then they actually went out and stopped being a website. And I was like, how can I continue this, in my own light while trying to shed light on things that nobody else is talking about? Because I wanted to kind of go off the beaten path. Not a lot of people were talking about the Marlins, but literally nobody was talking about the minor league system, which I knew back then, and we know now, that the Marlins are still going to have to draw from for the rest of their existence, most likely, unless they get a new owner who is very much more lucrative in spending. So that's never been the Marlins. So I was like, let me try to make this for the long haul. Let me try to make this something that can be sustainable for the long haul and something that I could just contribute to for the long haul. And I fell into covering minor league baseball. So I started covering minor league baseball in 2014. I became credentialed with the Marlins, thankfully, with them and their old communications director, Jason Latimer, in 2017. Just grinded it out for 3 years, kind of proved myself. I started out as a credentialed reporter that didn't have access to Clubhouse. So I was doing stuff like, interviews outside of clubhouses, interviews in parking lots at times, just to continue to try to prove myself that this is something that I'm going to continue to do and not just a one-time deal. And then they eventually recognized that and made me a full-time credentialed reporter, which I still hold that title to this day, which I am very thankful for them. I do not do the job full-time because I have to, pay bills and do other things that an adult has to do. But this is something that is literally a job. It's a huge responsibility. It's not something to be taken lightly. It's not just like you can do it without knowing what you're talking about and what you're doing. Like, not everybody can kind of just step into the role. So I'm kind of a part-timer on the scene, especially when it comes to Major League Baseball. I'm more of the minor league guy in what we're doing now, what my partnership is with Fish on First. Those guys are warriors. We have somebody at Major League Baseball games every day. I partner closely with Eli Sussman, Kevin Barral, Isaac Azut, Nate Karsmer has now started to contribute to our minor league side as well. But I'm kind of the guy for Fish on First, which I partnered with after they went independent. I've been a friend with Eli forever. But when he went independent, I kind of partnered on with him as the minor league guy. And I think, in my opinion, and there's a lot of people that cover the Marlins, but I think, in my opinion, our outlet and what we're doing now and what mine and Eli's vision was for this and what we tried to partner with together, we just kind of tried to make this the most circumventual coverage of the Miami Marlins, both at the major league level and at the minor league level. My focus is at the minors. What those guys do at the majors, we have a guy there literally every day. We have guys going on the road. It's great. And it's something that I saw as a huge opportunity for me to take my small project and make it part of something bigger. So I am hugely grateful to Eli and all of his staff and everything that they do. We've had so many great moments over the years. Sometimes we disagree, but that's what creates content. So we have different views at times. We have a lot of different minds contributing to this project, but it is something that I treasure and I will always do so. And I just try to make my inroads as best as I can with my coverage personally.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. One thing we were fortunate we did have Eli on, and it was the one wonky thing, sometimes with live recordings and whatnot, something happened. It didn't save. We had to actually do it a second time. And we had fun doing it a second time. And then we were fortunate enough to have him back on when we had our 2,000 subscriber count. He jumped on with us and had such a great time. And, it's funny how, so I found him, of course, and what actually, and I want to mention this comment here from TP Joseph. I rely on Carver and Fish for my Fish on First for my Marlins drafting and developmental updates. So thank you for sharing that. So it's funny is I wanted to do it, haven't planned it yet, but I was looking at doing something on winter ball. I really haven't dove into that just yet. And so I was like, you know what, let me try Fish on First. And of course, what do I see? See the article there, there. And so I read into that a little bit. And so I have some, just like, I didn't write anything down, but I just got my brain stirring a little bit like that and stuff. And so exactly that's, and that's building these connections, these relationships with this online community in terms of this stuff. And so I'm grateful for that website. I have it in my favorites, look at it very often. And that's saying a lot being a Mets fan. But, I kind of, right now we're on the different side of the spectrum. The Mets have dropping like every game and the Marlins have won 7 games in a row. And so we're going to dive into, of course, the minor league system, but let's talk just briefly about the major league roster. Just your thoughts on that 7-game win streak, and not just, they're not beating the Rockies and the Mets folks, kind of like what the Mets had to do, to get some wins there. They're beating the Giants and the Diamondbacks. And so just share a little bit about that 7-game, what's going right, because from an outside perspective, you look at the Marlins stats for the season, there's no one jumping off the page, but they're doing everything right now. So.
Yeah, like you said, it's not any one person. It's kind of a team effort, right? And what we actually had this as a roundtable question in one of our last articles that we did together as a staff, which we printed a couple of days ago. I think that the Marlins overall, the first half so far, are about where I expected them to be in terms of win-loss record, but it is for many different reasons. And this stretch has been great. They're on the verge of like setting a franchise record. Edward Cabrera's shoving tonight, by the way. We can get to that in a second again. But yeah, no, they have done it up until tonight. They have not had a starting pitcher. I thought coming into this year, starting pitching was going to be your strength. You got Sandy coming back. You got Yuri coming back. You got Eddie trying to prove himself. You got Max Meyer, who made some good strides. You got Ryan Weathers, who I thought was going to have a really good year before he got hurt. So those 5 starters right there, I really thought that they had a chance to really do stuff and a lot of stuff on the pitching side. There's been injuries. There's been struggles from Sandy. There's been Meyer getting hurt. Weather's gone out with an injury. They've kind of had to piece it together on the rotational side, where now Jansen Junk's an everyday guy, every 5th day guy, where he's more of a long reliever. You've kind of had bullpen games mixed in here and there because they really have nobody else. They've, tried their best to piece it together as best as they can. I think they have prospects coming that will help, like Robbie Snelling. Maybe we can get into him. But the offense has really been what has pushed this team to this stretch. They've won games in different ways. They've had different contributors. It really is awesome. It's not just been one guy, like you said. It's been kind of a whole up and down the lineup effort. And this stretch, we talked about it tonight on our live stream. I think personally, earlier in the year, the Marlins and Clayton McCullough, who's a rookie manager, were throwing out a different lineup literally every single day for like the first 50 games of the year, which was unprecedented. I've never seen something like that. So
the Tampa Bay Rays thing too, it's weird, but
yeah, whether it was Clayton himself or Bendix or, them just relying on analytics more so than the human factor. I really was a proponent of changing that up a little bit. I'm not an expert, but there is something to be said about guys getting used to hitting in the same spot in the lineup, right? Being that 4th guy every day that's going to go up there to look for RBIs, being that guy that's second in the lineup that's going to go out there looking to get on base any way they can to kind of push it towards those RBI guys, being the leadoff guy that's going to, being asked to go out there and set the table, being at the bottom of the lineup in the 9th spot to turn it over, whatever it may be, right? So they didn't do that for like the first very long while this season, and they finally started doing it literally at the start of the 7-game span, which they've won every game. And it's worked. It's been something that has really worked for them, just getting those guys continuity and consistency in the same spot in the lineup. Hasn't been just one guy. I really like Kyle Stowers, though. I think he's a little bit streaky at times, but he's been good so far, especially lately. Really also like what we see from Augustin Ramirez, who just came up and this guy just hits absolute tanks. And it's not just to one side of the field. I was worried about him only being a pull guy. He started to go to other sides of the field as well, opposite field. Awesome. But yeah, no, it's been, like I said, about the same as I expected record wise. Outside of the 7-game win streak, I didn't predict that, but they've gotten help from all over this lineup. Otto Lopez has been good. It's not just been one guy; it's been several guys that have really contributed to what has been a surprising offensive effort, I would say.
Yeah, and see those, obviously it's not going to be sustained. They're going to drop a game or two here and there. But to me, it's more impressive when a team, when it's not the same, like what they're doing now. It's not the same guy every night. It's a different person, a different contributor. Oftentimes when teams go on hot streaks, it's because somebody got hot. And then when that person cools off, and unfortunately, there's some rosters out there that happened to, and the Marlins are in a case right now where they're the 26-man roster. They're utilizing everybody, and it's working. And so, you mentioned there's some names that we thought they're on the injured list right now and stuff like that, but other people are stepping up. One thing I always find funny when you look at a roster, and this has been a Marlins thing forever, right? But when you go to the roster page for the Miami Marlins, you usually get to see everyone on one screen. You have to kind of hold down the scroll bar to see everyone who's had a game at least this season, which is interesting. But it's kind of been the Marlins way. And so we'll see. I mean, anything can happen. One thing we always say on the show is you just got to get in. Right now, it's like the Mets are like, there's a lot of baseball left to be played, but it's a real struggle right now. Getting swept against Pittsburgh, outnumbered outscored 30-4. That had to be a little bit interesting for a Marlins fan perspective, looking at that, saying, "Wait a minute, we can catch those guys." But so I want to talk. So minor league baseball. Okay, so that's near and dear to my heart. So I would say, I want to say about, could be off, give or take, 12 or 13 years ago. I got an opportunity to go see a game in Port St. Lucie to see the St. Lucie Mets play. In that particular first game I ever saw, they were playing Jupiter. And on this night, I met a friend for life. She's since passed on, but she is someone who, her and her husband went from every single game from 1988 that they've had. I think they've missed 2 games in their life at St. Lucie, and they met at a day-night doubleheader in Brooklyn for the Brooklyn Dodgers back in the day. And you knew that was love at first sight because she shared with me that the first game of the doubleheader went 21 innings, and then they still had another game to go, and they still didn't leave early, and they made it through, and that's love. So anyway, long story short, so I got an opportunity to meet them, and then I wound up where I worked. It was in Vero Beach, which, as you know, is not too far from Port St. Lucie. So I wound up getting season tickets, and I think I did for about 5 years. And even though I didn't get to make even a fourth of the games, I got to go to at least 20 to 25 a year. And it was so worth it. And I had my little seat and everything. Every once in a while, someone, that's not your seat, and to show your ID and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of funny. But I had such a good time in that experience, meeting people. I loved the Tuesday night bingos. I loved when it was like nobody there, because you can hear everything. The dollar nights and all the minor league stadiums are probably similar to what they do. So I say all that to say, the minor league experience, I got a little taste of that yesterday with the Rays and A's in Steinbrenner Field. Even though it was the professional team, they had over 10,100 people there, something like that, jam-packed like sardines in there. So let's start there with so I mentioned the St. Lucie Mets, but let's talk Jupiter Hammerheads, right? So they're in the single A, like I think we mentioned off there that they used to be the high A, and now they're the low A, and kind of flip-flop there, which is interesting. But I know you're near that area, and so just share what an experience might be like to someone that hasn't been to that stadium, Roger Dean Stadium, I believe, that's shared with another team during the regular season. I think even during the minor league season too. So, yeah.
Yeah, so it's called the busiest stadium in America, and it really is. Like you said, they have 2 minor league affiliates. There's a game there every single day during the minor league season, whether it's the Hammerheads or the Palm Beach Cardinals. So they have a game there literally every single day. What you're getting here, and it's changing a little bit because of renovations that they're doing to the stadium. They are renovating clubhouses. They are putting in some new experiences for fans. Keep in mind, it's also a spring training park. That's kind of where they kind of do their business on the business side of things. They do a lot during the spring training season. That's kind of where they make their bread, right? That's kind of their thing. But what I would say is what you're getting from this experience overall during the minor league season, you're going to see a small crowd, probably in most cases. You're going to see rainouts. You're going to see an open air stadium in South Florida. We all know what that entails. That's not far away from the beach. It's like 4 miles away from the beach in Jupiter. So you're going to see an awesome little area that that stadium is situated in called Abacoa. You have like a really nice kind of tiny little township feel. They have nice coffee shops. They have some nice restaurants that are around. They have some bars and grills that are around. They have student housing that's around. So the kind of the dichotomy of what the residents there look like is students and then some middle-aged and older people as well. So it's kind of a little bit of everything. But I love being there. I call it to this day myself. I call it my happy place. It's just somewhere that I love to be. The ballpark atmosphere and what you're going to get from the overall experience is going to be more of an old time feel. It's going to be more of a traditional baseball experience. It's going to be more of a experience where they're trying to kind of incorporate some more modern elements. They recently actually just incorporated, I think like a couple of years ago, they just got like a camera that they can put on the scoreboard, what they're filming on the camera. So they can do a little bit more with fans. They do games on top of the dugout. It's just fun. It's just the complete epitome to me of low A or high A baseball is exactly what this team does on a daily basis. And they do it well. I really do think they do it well. It's fun. It's always just fun to go out and really sit in just like a unique, quieter baseball atmosphere and just take in what's going on the field while also having some fun off the field as well. They have the bingo nights that you mentioned. They have the beer nights that you mentioned. They have that during the week. So for a little bit, actually, during COVID, they actually didn't allow fans in, I think, on Sundays. So Sundays was just empty crowds, but now you can go back on Sundays, which are still smaller crowds because they're day games in the South Florida sun. So it's a little bit there. They are trying to upgrade the experience, as I told you, by getting rid of metal bleachers and putting in a new experience down the left field line, putting some seats maybe in the outfield, making bullpens for the length of time that I've gone to the stadium. The bullpens were on the field. So during the game, when a pitcher is warming up, somebody has to guard the catcher that is catching in the bullpen. They finally changed that this past year and got bullpens beyond the outfield wall. So they're upgrading it. They're doing their best. They did get a huge grant. So it is cool to see them trying to upgrade the experience, but it's just fun. It's traditional baseball. It being low A, the on-field product, you're probably going to see some learning experiences from these players. So, if you're filling out a scorecard, hopefully your wrist doesn't get tired while you're doing it because you see some long innings. So that's what I'd say overall, but it's overall one of my favorite places to go. And I've been going there for a long time. And I have so much joy being at that stadium, and they're trying to upgrade it. And I think they're doing a good job overall.
I'm glad to hear that they're making the upgrades. I've been there several times, and it's been a little while now. I had been, a lot more back in the day. But that was always my thing, is like, the stadium needs just some upgrades and, take this to the next level. So I'm glad to hear that. I remember, now again, take this with a grain of salt. It could have just been some rogue fan that was telling me misinformation. But one of the times I went there many, many moons ago, I was told that if you're able to make every game in a season combined between the Marlins and the Cardinals, that you get some sort of following season spring training ticket package or something to that effect. I don't know. Maybe he was just,
that would be an accomplishment and would be deserving of that. Yeah, that would be an accomplishment and would be deserving of that honor. But I have not heard of that personally. They've also, I will say, they've also had turnover with GMs on both teams. So maybe it's something that was part of a former GM or former stadium manager that they've seen movement there as well with who manages the stadium. So it sounds like something that they would probably do, but I don't know that for a fact.
Now, Joseph mentions here, says night setup. Then again, I like Space Coast in Vieira, going back to the Expo. So that's near and dear to my heart. So where I live was actually about 25 minutes south of Space Coast Stadium. So that was my jam. I even bought national season tickets, 2 seasons for spring training, just because it was the closest stadium. And I loved it so much. I would go when the tickets went on sale. I would get there at 6 a.m. and stand in line till 10, and I would get tickets at the regular price and not have to worry about all the fees and all the good stuff. And fun fact, though, if you do go to the stadium now, they do a lot of, travel ball and tournaments and umpire trainings and things like that. But if you go to the stadium still to this day, and underneath the seats, if you kind of chip just a little bit, you still have that teal colored seats from back in the day. I know they did it at the time for the national colors and stuff, but there's still some of that teal underneath there, which is really awesome. So fun fact there. And Joe, yes, Joe, one of my closest friends, best friends, he's 10 minutes. He lives from the stadium. He lives right there. So I'm sure, Joe, you echo the same thing. You would be there in a heartbeat if they still had ball there. Those of us, and you would know this, Alex, but this area, we really got picked. We lost the Dodgers. We lost the Nationals and the Manatees, and then even the teams that played at Disney, they got out of there, and Kissimmee, they got out of there. So really got pride and pulled of our East Coast spring training.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember going to Brevard to see the Manatees, the Brevard County Manatees. I also remember going there to see the Marlins play spring training when they were in Vieira. That was way back in the day where the Marlins played spring training in Vieira. My family and me, when I was a kid, used to go to games there as well. I've been to Dodgertown. I've seen it. Like I've been to all of those places. They were great places. And yeah, that area kind of, like you said, did get a little bit stripped of the baseball experience, which sucks. But at least, like you said, you still go to PSL. Port St. Lucie. Jupiter's not too far from you if you really wanted to come down here. But yeah, no, I remember growing up going to Vieira to see the Marlins. I remember also one of my fondest baseball experiences a little bit further south of you, but you talk about a rudimentary baseball experience, especially for a spring training park, was Fort Lauderdale Stadium. That experience was incredible. Literally, a guy selling beer out of a cooler underneath bleachers was like the bulk of their concessions, with a grill alongside it for hot dogs. But you could go there and see Mark McGwire. You could go there and see Cal Ripken when the Orioles played there. You can see, Ricky Henderson came out there. Yeah, it was great. And those are some of the fondest experiences that I have of my childhood growing up with baseball that are no longer around. So I kind of share that sentiment with you.
Yep. And my wife's on with us, and she mentioned that this was our first, or that was our first meetup before we really started dating, was going to a game there at Space Coast Stadium. And so that was great, that to have that experience before while that was still there. And then Joe as well. One story, and I know sometimes we have an agenda and we'll probably get to some of it, but sometimes sharing stories is fun to get a little bit off script. But Joe, if you're still in the chat with us, you can put your comments in there. But there was an experience where Joe and I went to a game. It was a random Tuesday night game in Space Coast Stadium. I think they were playing the Clearwater Thrashers at the time. And we're having a good time. And we notice there's an error, and then another error, and then another error. And then this inning happened that could only be described as a joke. Like, you can't possibly duplicate what happened. But in this one inning, there was a play where the catcher overthrew, throwing to second to try to throw a runner out at second, where the center fielder caught the ball in the air. We had a second baseman drop 2 pop flies that landed next to him that didn't even touch his glove. We had 5 overthrows from shortstop to first base. It was, I think, Joe, if I'm not mistaken, 12 errors on the board, but probably at least 21 legit errors that happened. And I would pay any money that I could, budget restricted, of course, to see video of that experience, because you just had to be there to understand. It wasn't just the normal errors. These were ridiculous. So I got to ask you then, since we're touching on that, do you have a game? Because like you said, obviously the on-field product's not what it is in the majors and stuff. Is there a game, maybe not to that extent, but is there a night or a specific game or something that you remember that was a little bit that ridiculous?
Oh man. I mean, I could just throw it back to recent memory of a game that I was looking at. Like, this is going to be an FCL game, which is a Florida Complex League game. As far, if you don't know, Florida Complex League games are actually played in South Florida. They are played in Jupiter when the FCL team is at home. They are on the backfields in Jupiter. So these are guys that are just breaking into stateside baseball, meaning they're very young in most cases, usually 18, 19 years old, sometimes 17 years old. So this is maybe their first stop, right? And definitely their first stateside stop, right? So one that comes to mind recently was a game where the team just scored an exorbitant amount of runs. And I think this was like last year, I'm pretty sure, with the FCL team. They just scored an exorbitant amount of runs, and you look at the box score and you're like, oh, okay, the other team committed 7 errors. So you can kind of see why. And it happened again this year. It happened in the Dominican Summer League. The Dominican Summer League Marlins, who are actually pretty stacked up in terms of prospect pedigree with the youngest of Marlins prospects, just the other day they scored 29 runs. So I look at the box score and I'm like, how did they score 29 runs? Was there a lot of home runs? Like, what happened? the other team made 7 errors.
7 errors.
Yeah,
so
you
probably
look at the box score and you're like, okay, that's kind of one of those games where it's just like everything went wrong for the other team. So yes, I've had those experiences. I've also had experiences where games will literally go into the 14th and 15th inning. Even with the runner placed at second
and
rule.
Have you ever had have you ever been part of a 14th inning stretch? Because apparently that is a thing.
I have. Yep. Even with the runner at second rule, I have been in that situation. So
oh wow. Okay.
They just can't score the run. They can't play the run for whatever reason. They don't bunt the runner over to third or whatever it is. Like they just don't score the run. So I have seen games go upwards of 15 innings without the run from second being scored. And then before the place runner rule, I've been at like 17 inning minor league games where they just can't score the run. So there's always something to see in minor league baseball, but what you see sometimes will make you scratch your head, I think. But that's why these levels are there. They're there for these players to learn through their mistakes. And that is the most important thing rather than the wins and losses.
It is. And, as a fan, and you have those that are proponent of they like the 10th inning rule with the, to condense the game times. I'm from the, let's just, I'm not a fan of the ghost runner. Joe echoes the same sentiment as me, as does Darren, who's not here. But I get it. And so when you do go to a minor league game, a lot of the times it's like that person you're with that's just there because it's dollar night or just for a good time. And then they get a little bit, you can see them getting nervous. They're like, wait a minute, like it's still tied in the top of the ninth. You're telling me, I asked you earlier when we get to go home, and now we're possibly gonna have to stay longer. Like, no, we're gonna go, and you can't go. You got to see this to the end, So, so I think, it's to each its own. But one thing I wanted to ask you, Eileen and I got an opportunity to go to Jacksonville recently, and we did not get to see the jumbo shrimp, and I'm sad about this to this day because, cool name aside, I was really looking forward. Again, when we hit certain cities up, I'm like, there's got to be a minor league team that plays there or something. But unfortunately, they were on the road, so we couldn't make that happen. So could you share, since I didn't get that awesome opportunity, I know you've been at least once, but could you share the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp? And not only that, this team won the first half. So now, for those that don't know, not that would ever happen, but they could legitimately go winless in the second half of the season and still, quote unquote, make the playoffs because you win the first half, is how that goes in Florida State League. But yeah, if you wouldn't mind sharing about the Jacksonville AAA ball club.
Yeah, for sure. So, been here multiple times. I was there when they were the AA affiliate, and now they are the AAA affiliate. Another area that's being built up. So the immediate area, they actually have 3 stadiums that are in place. So they have, it's called Brigham Field or 121 Financial, whatever you call it. That's the Jumbo Shrimp Ballpark. And then right behind it actually is the Jaguar Stadium. And right across the street from there is a hockey arena. So they actually have everything kind of condensed in one place in the middle of downtown Jacksonville. I will say ballpark experience, one of my favorites. It's awesome. It's that old time feel with the new time infusion in terms especially of food. Their food items and food options are so good. The last time I was there, I had pork and shrimp nachos out of a shrimp helmet. Like it's just so good. And they're always including new things. So the stadium's been there for a while. They are upgrading it. They have this new thing where they have a huge project to upgrade the stadium, which has already started, which looks really, really cool. There's multiple things included in that expanded team store. There's new seating options that they're going to be including. There's so many things that are going to be included in that. And it is a really, really great minor league baseball experience and deserves to be at the AAA level. I thought that even back when they were AA that they deserved to be AAA, and I'm so glad that they got that option to do it. The rebrand was just so successful. They used to be the Jacksonville Suns. Now, as you mentioned with the name, they're the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp with Ken Babby at the helm, who also owns the Akron Rubber Ducks. So there's kind of your dichotomy of how he goes about incorporating fun into his model. Their model is affordable family fun, and it really is that. The way they market the team is so good. They always have crowds. It doesn't matter who's playing on those fields. They always have people at the stadium because of how the team is marketed so well. They do such a great job. And I really can't say enough. I come from a marketing background, so I can't say enough about how much they do with marketing. They market so well to Duval. They have really bought fully into this moniker and name. They do so much, like I said, with food items, with different things that they do at the park in terms of incorporating this with merchandise. So many theme nights, so many jersey auctions. Like, they just do so many different things at the minor league level that are proven to be successful, while also incorporating things that are completely their own. So I am totally all for the Jumbo Shrimp, their marketing model, what they do from a marketing standpoint, I think makes this team a huge success. And unlike a lot of teams in the state of Florida, especially South Florida, I don't think a lot of times it matters what's going on the field for them because of everything they do behind the scenes. It's so good, and their marketing model carries them to success.
I've noticed, with my experience with minor league ball, the marketing is number one. It's so important. And what I love about it, let's put it this way, like someone asked me recently, Jacksonville, it's not Tampa, it's not Orlando, it's not Miami. Well, fun fact. If you add up the people that live in Miami and Tampa combined, that's still 125,000 people less than live in Jacksonville. And then again, Tampa and Orlando, you add those two, that's still almost 180,000 people less than who lives in Jacksonville. So Jacksonville is massive. You don't think that. You think when you hear Florida, you think Miami, Tampa, Orlando, but Jacksonville is the most populated city. And so some clever marketing, it's key results, and that's what they're doing so well there. And like we mentioned, first half champion, and so they'll be playing in beyond the second half, regardless of how they do. One question I wanted to ask you, and we got just under about 20 minutes left on the podcast, so we got a little bit of time. So the experience, if you could put yourself in the mindset of a minor league manager, they know what they're getting into. You have a talent that exceeds expectations. They get moved up the food chain, especially a team like we were talking about Jupiter, for example. But so at the end of the day, you want your players to succeed and do well. But then you're also the team that you celebrate with perhaps at the end for the championships, not the team that you started with a lot of the times. And you have to be okay with letting people go. But then you also have that really cool experience where we've all seen those viral videos, right? Where the AAA manager is letting them know they've made the big club. But now I've been seeing more and more of people from, per se, just using this as an example. But you would see teams from Pensacola that would be getting hey, you're going up to Jacksonville. It's not always just straight to the major league level. So my question for you is just for fun, but like, if you had to put yourself into that perspective of minor league manager, knowing what it is that you're expecting, like how you feel like you would handle all that, because it may not be about wins and losses, but you also have your own job security and all that, but that it's constant moving pieces along the way.
Yeah, and I think that any minor league manager has to come from the mindset of knowing how to develop people first, right? They're baseball players. We know that they're baseball players, but I think more so than anything, the minor league grind, as you know, is a grind. And it's something that isn't for everybody, that not a lot of players come into minor league baseball and it's not for them, and they fizzle out and they never make it, right? So for a minor league manager to be able to not only build up a player, but build up a person is, I think, where a minor league manager or any member of staff finds their joy, right? I did everything that I could to make sure that this player got to the next level, and they did it. So I'm a success because they are a success. That is where I think that if any minor league manager should find, or coaching staff member should find their reason for doing what they do, their why, right? Why am I a minor league manager? It's not because I plan for, this player to be on my team for the rest of my career or for even multiple years. It's because while they were under my tutelage, I helped them make the next step. I helped them get to the next level. I am a part of their career forever, right? Because of what I did as they were developing. That is where I think, yes, it is hard to say goodbye to somebody that is loved by your staff, that is loved by your fans in your community. We have had longtime players come through this community that have spent multiple years at certain levels. We've seen it. I've personally seen it, and left and gone other places, whether that's to the Marlins or whether that's to another team in a trade or whether that's to a different organization or a different league, a higher league, a lower league, whatever it may be, whatever is best for that person. As long as that manager or staff member did right by that person by helping them develop the way that they needed to be developed and not treating them as just another player, but as a person, and not treating them as an item, but as an individualized commodity that needs their own individualized development plan. That is what is important in any major league organization. It has to be present for the Marlins. I'm so glad that it is starting to be present for the Marlins. They are looking at data on each player and developing them in ways that they need to be developed personally and not just out of a model. So that is why I am glad that the staff is here that is here. They have had staff turnover. Like, it hasn't just been in minor league baseball. It usually is this way, where there is staff turnover. Guys get promoted, guys leave, guys go other places on the coaching staff side. There was a lot of that with the Marlins this year. They didn't have too much turnover, but what they have in place now, I think, are those guys that will treat players as people, as players. Not to say that it wasn't here before, it was, but there is that reason, finding the why and why you do what you do as a player and as a manager. And as a manager, to answer your question, I think finding your why would not be to say, okay, I want this player on my team forever. It's, I helped that guy take the next step.
No, excellent. And everything you said is true. And Eileen mentioned that's literally a teacher's heartbeat. You know, the same, you know, they know they're not having the same student forever. They're going to constantly rotating door. You know, especially a lot of times, you know, some people would ask me, you know, through the years, are you an autograph guy? Are you a photo guy? Are you just like a handshake guy when it comes to players and talent? And I realized early on as a youngster with going to my first games, that getting the number of a player, like the number on the back of their jersey, hey, 92. I always thought, is that disrespectful to the player? Like, you're just shouting a number at them and they're supposed to turn around and sign. And then you realize, like, because some of the minor league jerseys, they don't have the names on the back and stuff. And so I always, when I can, I always tell a youth at the game or like, make sure you know what the last name is of number 92, because you can put that ball on your shelf. I have a few balls in my collection that I probably was really excited to get the ball from that minor leaguer, but I have no idea who in the world it is now because I can't read it. It's faded over time, that sort of thing. So, and 9 times out of 10, I have all these photos with all these different minor league talent, and 9 out of 10, probably not I'm probably exaggerating a little bit, but 9 out of 10 at minimum, I'm probably not going to see the major league level. The one player for me that was the most prolific, I got to see Daniel Murphy's very first game and saw his progression, and I got a hat of his and a ball from him and all that sort of stuff, and loved to see what he wound up becoming and whatnot. So wanted to ask you, and I want to chat about some of the other affiliates here, or touch on them, but is there a player that you got an opportunity to maybe see at the lowest level and get to see where they've, in terms of like, that's more near and dear to your heart now that's at the major league level, or was that you kind of got to see go through the stages?
Yeah, absolutely. So I saw Jose Fernandez pitch for the Hammerheads when he was coming up. I was a fan back then. I wasn't yet credentialed as media, but knowing what I knew about baseball even then, I knew that I was looking at one of the best players that I've ever seen play, even at that level. And that matriculated so well for him. We all know what happened. We all know that he's not here anymore. But for the short time that he was in baseball, he was one of the best players that I've ever seen play the game. And it really isn't even close from a pitching perspective. It wasn't even close for me. There have been other guys that have been very good that I've watched come through these levels. There have been guys that have become Major League Baseball players that I know are very good. Like Yuri Perez is one of them. Just a guy that kind of followed a similar path. Jose was more of a stateside guy, whereas Yuri is international. But Jose defected from Cuba, everything intertwined. But Jose Fernandez for me is a guy that I saw play for the Jupiter Hammerheads, that I saw go up the levels very, very quickly and contribute to the Marlins in a very quick manner, and just did it in a dominant fashion at every stage of the game. So when you ask me that question, is there anybody that stands out to you that you saw from the lowest levels go up and become special? That is always going to be my answer. Jose Fernandez,
yes,
far and away, is one of the best players that I've ever watched play baseball in person.
Yes, he would no doubt be, one thing we're going to chat about here in just a second, transition into, so it's fun to kind of chat about a Mount Rushmore, right? But he, without a doubt, would be not only on that list, feel like he would be at the top of that list with extended career and all that kind of stuff. And we all know what happened there and whatnot. But I cannot agree with you more. I think in my lifetime, the only pitcher that comes close in terms of who I've seen is probably Clayton Kershaw in terms of in-person stuff, and Jacob deGrom, unfortunate with the Mets. I even got to see one time, I think it was, and this wasn't minor leaguer versus minor leaguer. This was rehabber versus rehabber. Remember going just to a St. Lucie game one time. This is way, way, way back in the day when the Dodgers were still here. And I went to go see a minor league game, and I got to see Pedro Martinez versus Clayton Kershaw in a minor league level. And I think John Maine and somebody else pitched game 2. I was like, okay, that's doesn't happen too often. But so I've got to ask you, in terms of the Mount Rushmore, there's no wrong answers here. Your Miami Marlins, Florida Marlins, conglomerate, your Mount Rushmore.
It's a great question because I could go a couple different
So
directions.
many different ways.
I will give you first, and this always has to be a member of any Marlins legacy conversation that I have, is my favorite player of all time, Jeff Conine. My favorite player from childhood. It's on the back of my Little League baseball card. It's on the back of my high school baseball profile when I lived in California. That is my favorite baseball player. I wore number 9 for Niner. Like, that was my guy. I have to go with him. 2-time champion, one of 2 Marlins only, other than Rick Helling, who was a reliever that wasn't that well known. He was on both World Series teams, but Jeff Conine was a everyday player on both World
He was
Series.
the first autograph I ever got. He actually came to our Melbourne Square Mall of all places here locally. And so first autograph I ever got was Jeff Conine. But go ahead.
Fan favorite, always made time for fans. Great guy, great family guy. His son is with the Marlins now. Unfortunately, he's injured this year, but Jeff Conine's number 1. We'll go Jose Fernandez. We just talked about it. I don't have to go too far into that. I will say that Hanley Ramirez should be there. That is a long tenured player that had great moments with the Marlins, came over from the Red Sox, was an basically immediate contributor to the Marlins at the major league level, and had some great moments. Never won a title or anything like that, but was a great Marlin for a long time at shortstop. One of the hardest positions to play. That's Hanley Ramirez should be there. And then as the last, I'll say that the greatest slugger in Marlins history, Giancarlo.
Yeah, Giancarlo. Yeah, and Giancarlo, I was able to, for my bachelor party, we had a PG bachelor party, which is what I want. And I went to a Marlins game, and I'd never gotten a ball in a major league stadium before. And I got to my seat, and I got a Giancarlo upper deck home run from batting practice. And so happy to get that because he hit a lot of those. So, yep, great list. I think that is the exact same list. If I can check my notes here, I think from when we had Eli on, I think that was actually mine as well. So can't argue with that list. There's so many routes you can go. Sometimes we include managers. Sometimes we include broadcasters, no wrong answers there. So what I wanted to ask you, I know we're just under 10 minutes left. So one question I had to ask, so we hadn't talked a little bit or yet really about the Pensacola Wahoos in the AA level. I know you haven't been just yet, but there's when you look at the top 10 prospects for the Marlins, there's 3 names on there: Thomas White, Robbie Snelling, and Kemp Alderman. Is there anyone on your radar? Obviously, those are the cream of the crop, but anyone else on your radar from either the Pensacola Wahoos or the other single A club, the Benoit Sky Carp?
Yeah, I still have hope for Noble Meyer. I know it's kind of been a struggle for him. He was injured last year a little bit. He shared with us that he never wound up in the IL, but he had something going on with the back leg. And he kind of has that going on again. He's on the IL again for a similar issue. So I still have hope for him. I think his pure stuff is still really, really, really good. But if he's fully healthy, and hopefully he can get back to being fully healthy. He was fully healthy in spring training, and he looked really, really good. Velo was up. He was working more. He was working with the grips on his pitches a little bit, turning more into slider, into sweeper, which a lot of Marlins pitchers are doing as a model. Changeup looked like it was taking steps forward. So I still have hope, even though this first half has not gone the way that he wanted it to. Spring training looked really good. I still have hope for Noble Meyer. I really do. He's matured so much mentally, I think, as well over the couple of years that he's been here. So I still really do have hope for Noble, and I don't think that he should go away out of people's minds just because he had a bad first half. Yeah, you mentioned Thomas White. That guy's going to be really special. You mentioned Robbie Snelling. That guy, I think, could be with the Marlins anytime. I think that he could go straight up. to the Marlins from that level. I mean, other than that, there's a couple of other guys that you could throw in. I mean, Beloit's kind of had a shaky start to the year, I would say. The offensive prowess there really isn't huge. They don't really have like a standout star offensive prospect on that team. They did, and then they promoted him. So, yeah, I mean, I think overall, to answer your question, the main guy to keep in mind from those levels for me is still Noble. I really am hopeful that he can still be the guy like that we all think that he could be and should be as he grows as a pitcher. I really think so. I really don't have a doubt that he will be. It's just that he needs to fully stay healthy, make things kind of matriculate as he goes with the growth that he made in spring training, as I just mentioned. So, I mean, other than that, there are role players there. I think there are B and C type prospects at those levels that can still help out. I have hope still. I really do have hope for Yiddy Capay. That's been a guy that's kind of been a guy that left our minds for a while, and for good reason, because he just didn't really make physical improvement. He didn't really make on-field improvement in terms of contact rates. He's been okay this year. He's mostly like DHing, I think, to maybe take pressure off the bat and let the bat start to work out. He's hitting 275 right now, which is good, but he has missed time again with injury. So I still have hope for Capay. He was star-studded. He was a guy that the organization, the last org, was really high on. So I have hope for him. But those will kind of be my main ones to call out at those levels, other than the stars that we know. I really like Ryan Ignafo. I'll call him out too. I really like Ignafo. This has been a guy who I've known since he came into the organization. Before he got here, he literally did everything in college other than catch. He was a pitcher, he was an outfielder, he was an infielder, but he never caught. The Marlins made him a catcher, and it's working out. He just does everything, and he's so cool. He's such a nice guy. I love Ignafo. He's at the AA level. He's now, I think, mostly the full-time catcher at the AA level since Mac is up. So, yeah, he's another guy that I really like, just because he's that grinder. He's that pure minor leaguer. He's the grinder. He's a late bloomer. A story I really love. So I love Ignafo, too. I'll give you that one as well.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. I love that. I knew everything besides that last part, so that's interesting. So play everywhere else, but it's not good enough. Go catch now. Yeah, that's kind of funny too. So I'm glad that that's working out. And just circling back real quick to the jumbo shrimp, Jacob Marcy. So you look at that 39 stolen bases, 10 caught stealing. I kind of like that. Like, I know some may look at that caught stealing 10 times, 39, but like, obviously, there was a guy that comes to mind. As long as you're not, and he's got a 241 average, about 10 home runs, 20 RBI. But the one guy, Billy Hamilton, comes to mind, a guy who probably had a little bit more than that on pace when he was in the minor league system, but just couldn't figure out how to hit in the major league level, unfortunately. But you got a guy like Jacob Marcy, you just got to get on base. The Rays have that guy in Chandler Simpson right now, where it's just get him on base. He'll steal 2 bases every time if he can. So just final thoughts in terms of the players, your thoughts on Jacob Marcy.
Yeah, it's so interesting you mentioned the stolen bases too, because, we talked to Troy Johnston about this. I had him on the podcast not too long ago. And we talked about like mentality with stolen bases, because this team has a lot of stolen bases and Marcy has a lot of them, as you called out. But the mentality really for the stolen bases isn't that you have to be the fastest guy. It's that they have this mentality with leads and secondary leads, that if you kind of get to a certain spot, and if you kind of know where that secondary lead is, that you're going to go and you're going to make it. So it really is interesting that, and Troy said that to us as well last year, but they just built on it this year and made that model even better. So I think that's really a focus for the Marlins, is stolen bases. You can kind of see it up and down the levels, where last year the Florida Complex League team, who plays a half season, stole 200 plus bases, which is absolutely insane. It was a franchise record, and they only play half a season. So
you can't even replicate that in a video game with those.
Yeah, like it's just insane. And then, like you said, Marcy now with 39 stolen bases. Nobody ever really viewed him, or Troy, who has a bunch of stolen bases this year. They're not the fastest guys in the world, but with the model that they're rolling out, with analytics included, they know through reviewing film, if they get to a certain spot, if they know a certain pitcher is taking up until 2 on the pitch clock, right? You're going to go every time, because that pitcher isn't going to have enough time to check you and throw over. If that pitcher's taking forever to get back on the mound, and Troy said this, if he's taking forever to get back on the mound and he's back on the mound under 5 seconds, I'm going to steal every time. Every time I'm going to steal. And usually, and I think it's what Marcy's doing too. That's what they're being coached to do. Plus, like I said, getting to a certain point in the secondary. If they know they get to a certain spot, they're going to go. And then if a pitcher takes a certain amount of time to start their windup, they're going because that pitcher's not going to have time to check them. So they're just going to go. So super smart. It's just an intricate detail that this coaching staff and players are paying attention to that are allowing stolen bases, particularly at the upper levels. So super cool. I was so glad to get that insight from Troy that, like, if they take that long, I'm just gonna run because they're not gonna have time to get me anyways.
Yeah, and if they do, it won't happen again. Probably it'll be one and done in that case. So much good stuff. I hate that we're almost out of time here, so I'll have my final question in the comments there. As Eileen says that, you know what's up, you know your stuff. Yep, does have the Marlins farm system down pat for real though. Is giving Moneyball vibes. So my final question, what I wanted to ask. So when you look at minor league baseball as a whole, there's so much good about it, and you know they try to get you in by, oh, like we talked about earlier, oh, it's this night, oh, it's that night, or you know, dollar this or dollar that, but really just like, and from your perspective, like, are you, like, from friends and family and stuff like that, are you able to get a lot of people to come out to the park, give it a try, give it a chance? Like, are you finding yourself like trying to bring people in a lot of times, or are you finding it difficult to, like, is there interest in the minor league game for people outside of that are already fan bases, or do you see like that baseball is thriving in that area? I know we're not going to have a ton of people, like we said, on a Tuesday night in July when it's 1 billion degrees outside, but do you see that revived interest in baseball again on the minor league level, or do you feel like it's kind of, because I know we had the COVID and everything like that, and it kind of stalled for a little bit, but I feel like it's on the rise a little bit back again. I see it on the MLB ticket now. You actually can access games from not every single minor league level, but there's enough there where you can watch some minor league games on there. So just wanted to get your quick thoughts on that as we wrap this up.
My answer to your question would be that I hope so. That would be my answer to your question. And, you know, with the intricacies that are here in terms of what Major League Baseball is doing and in terms of how the game has gotten so much younger, really, like even from when I was a kid, and I'm 37, even from when I was a kid, this game has gotten so much younger. It's gotten attention from all over the place, really, in terms of clientele that are paying attention to this game. And I think that overall what fans want to see is a prolonged interest in certain players. And I think it depends on where your organization is in terms of how your fan base is going to react to minor league baseball. If you're a fan of the Marlins, a diehard fan of the Marlins, as a lot of people I know are, you know that the players that are going to stick around for a long time are not at the major league level. They're at the minor league level. So fan bases like that, I think, will take a stronger liking to minor league baseball. Whereas if you're a fan of the Dodgers, who never shy away from trading prospects and are in the state of California where, you know, their affiliates aren't as close to them as other places, even with the COVID realignment, you kind of have to limit your expectations in terms of how much those fan bases are going to pay attention to minor league baseball because they are winning at the major league level. So a team like the Dodgers, they know who Josue DePaula is. They know who Zaire Hope is, but they probably don't mind if they get traded, and they probably aren't following them every day of the year. So what my answer to your question would be is, for the teams that are not the front runners in Major League Baseball, the teams that are not succeeding at the major league level, the teams that have diehard fans, that have longtime fan bases, that know that this is where the longtime success of my organization lies, that's where the minor leagues have garnered attention. And I think that from everything we talked about before, from ballpark atmosphere to the COVID realignment, making fan bases closer in a lot of areas, not all, but a lot of areas, affiliates are much closer to where the home team is. That is a huge development in the fact that minor league baseball could gain traction. And
weird right now because we have because we still have in the Florida State League, we have the 6 and the 4. We used to have the 6 and the 6, and it's stuck at that 6-4 ratio, but it makes sense. But one of the reasons that, as you know, as we close out, like one of the reasons I asked that question too, is I want to get to the point where, especially with the Marlins, where like if get more interest in the minor league level and get more excitement about some of these younger players, because Major League Baseball, you can say they can do better at this, they could better at that. If they can continue to put stars out there like Bobby Witt and Yuri with Cincinnati and guys like that, you get the younger names out there, get these kids exposed on the national level, get their games on Fox and ESPN, all that kind of stuff. When you go to a Marlin game, like I want it to be where they're not coming because of the opposing team that's coming, and it's still a thing, unfortunately. So if we can grow that minor league interest a little bit, then it's going to garner more people want to see the big team, which in result will have, we always want to welcome other fan bases in, but at the end of the day, you want to have majority of your fans. We were at the Rays A's last night. I'd say about 5%, maybe less, for A's fans, but it was a rocking house for the Rays. Now, A's aren't a big money draw, of course. If they were playing Boston or something, we've seen some fans come in, but you don't want it to be where it's like 80% other team, 20% home team. And unfortunately in Miami, that's kind of how it is. So hopefully you can take a turn for that. And yes, and Eileen mentions, I wish the Rays would have that same mentality, which could have a prolonged interest in one player so long. Rosarina. And yeah, that was sad to see him go. And of course, but this has been an absolute blast. And as we close this thing out, Alex, if you want to just share one more time where others can find you, either on social media, on the website, that sort of thing.
Yeah, sure. So this was great. I appreciate you guys having me on. I like not only the baseball conversation, but also the business conversation is something that always fascinates me, coming from a marketing background and everything. So those questions were great. But yeah, no, my name's Alex. You can find my stuff on @MarlinsMiners on all socials. Our website, I partner with another group of people that cover the major league team and the minor league team as well at Fish on First. So fishonfirst.com. This partnership with Eli, as you had him on, but my partnership with him has been all I could have asked for. His staff is amazing. As I said before, we try to really make this a team effort. It takes more than one person. It's not just about me. I have a lot of help on the minor league side. Eli is a great resource. We have great resources that help us out. All of his staff are awesome. So I would encourage all of you guys not only to follow me, but to follow Fish on First and all of Eli's staff: Kevin Barral, Isaac Azut, Nate Karsmer, Louis Adio Weiss, Sean, who's our intern. Like, we're still bringing people in and making this more of a team effort. So it's really cool. Daniel Rodriguez is another one. So it's really great. I couldn't have asked for more from a partnership than this from Eli. So a lot of what I do is thanks to him, and it's great. So follow Fish on First. All of my stuff can be found there. All of our articles can be found there under the Fish on the Farm moniker. So that's our stuff. That's what we do. We do this regularly. We had a live stream today. We'll have another one at the start of the next series. We do stuff in the off season. We really try to provide the most circumventual coverage of this team possible. And I personally, biasly speaking, think we do a pretty damn good job. So that's our stuff. Follow all of us, not just me, but I appreciate you having me on again, Mike. This was awesome.
And that's what I wanted to piggyback real quick on. That is, even when I talked to you, like, it's a team effort. Like, he couldn't speak any more highly of the staff on Fish on First. And it's very important to him. And so that's what I love about it. Even just being from an outside perspective, it's interesting read. You don't have to be a Marlin fan to appreciate the read there. So just want to say thank you for that. Thank you for all of you guys jumping on tonight. We were live just last week. We had professional bowler Sean Rash on here. Still can't believe it, because I was wowed when he had 200, 300 games on TV, but over 180 perfect games in his lifetime. Like, how is that? I can't even break 200 once on a good day. That blows my mind. But we'll be back live tomorrow. Eileen and I will be talking about our experience with the Rays and A's last night in Tampa. And again, this Sunday with Darren will be back, and we'll have our next guest on. Until next time, thank you, Alex. Thank you, everyone watching. And until next time, we will see you around the ballpark.